that's the other thing over the next 3 games. Like Brock Purdy's value might not go up, and it may not fluctuate wildly here in the next 3 weeks. But I would love to see them utilize Ricky Pearsall in whatever ways they think they might be able to utilize Ricky Pearsall. Like, treat this, this is going to sound insane, but treat this like preseason. You're obviously going to game plan. You're going to try and win. It's going to be a little different. But I would love to just see Ricky Pearsall get a ton of burn and run a ton of routes and do some end around stuff and do some. I know you don't want to put everything on tape, but it's a first round pick. He's not gotten to play a ton this year. And when he has gotten to play the last few weeks, I know he got 4 targets last week against the Rams, but prior to that, he had gotten like 3 targets in the previous 4 games. I just want to see Ricky Pearsall get some looks. So they know going into 2025, is this going to be a number 1 receiver? Is this a number 2 receiver? Is this our number 3? I think they can, that's a question I think they can legitimately get a lot of help answering in the next 3 games.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even if it's just something where you get him going for his confidence going into the offseason, so he can feel good about, his future. And because like that does matter a lot. Like if you like say he has another, like he ends the season over these 3 weeks, basically like he's played since like mid-November, where he's had 2 catches for 21 yards.
Oof.
Since November 17th, the Thursday or the Seahawks game, not the Thursday game, but the second Seahawks game.
Yeah.
So yeah, the last 5 games he's had 2 targets, 0 targets, 1 target, 2 targets, 4 targets, and only 2 catches over that entire span. If that's the type of production or the lack of production we see over these final 3 games, it's going to be pretty difficult to go into next season with any expectation that Ricky Pearsall is going to be a starting level receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that he can't be. It's just we haven't seen it. But if it's like 5 catches, 60 yards, 7 catches, 80 yards, whatever, over these next 3 games, then you do feel like you feel confident about him being part of the future, and he feels confident being part of the future.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably more uncertainty regarding the 49ers receiver position than I think would meet the eye, because I mean, we don't know if Deebo Samuel's going to be back. We don't know when Brandon Ayuk's going to be back, whether or not it's going to be training camp or at some point mid-season. Juwan Jennings is only signed through next year.
Yep.
So beyond his future beyond next season is very much in doubt. And you would love to have somebody who you say, all right, the next 3 years, we know this guy is going to be a starting caliber receiver who could potentially play at a high level. And you don't really have, you don't have that answer right now. There's no receiver you can look at on the 49ers roster right now because of Brandon Ayuk's injury that you could say, yeah, this is a potential 1,000-yard, 1,200-yard guy we're going to have locked up for the next 3 years. And really the best option, because he's the healthiest, is Ricky Pearsall. And that's not to say Brandon Ayuk can't recover and get to that point.
Yeah, but it's a question mark.
He has a long road ahead. Like, it wasn't just an ACL. It sounded like there was a lot more than the ACL tear with his knee injury. So I'm with you 100% in that you want to get Pearsall confident. You want to have him build chemistry with Brock Purdy to where they're on the same page and he's running the right routes with the right depths and the right breaks and the right splits and all of those things, because it is incredibly difficult to complete passes in the NFL because of all the details that you have to be up on, particularly in Kyle Shanahan's offense. And I think it's pretty clear that Ricky Pearsall has not been up on those details. And Brock Purdy hasn't been, awesome either. Like the Pearsall rough stretch has coincided with Purdy's rough stretch.
Yep.
But getting those two guys going and proving that Pearsall could be a reliable target could mean big things for the 49ers going forward.
I think all those points also work for Jacob Cowing, who doesn't play on offense. And the other layer to this, not only figuring out, getting those guys integrated into the offense and the chemistry and all the things you just mentioned, that's all super important. But the other aspect of this is we just talked about the draft and how important the draft is going to be. You got to know going in, are we using a mid-round pick on a receiver? Are we using an early pick on a receiver? Are we grabbing a couple late to see if one of them can? You got to know kind of exactly, because if you feature Pearsall over the next 3 weeks and he really struggles and you think, man, you know what, maybe he's just not going to translate to the NFL the way we thought. All right, well, maybe now you're taking another receiver in the first round because you need somebody that you feel like you can rely on. And that's where, like, you just can't, I think you want to eliminate as many variables as possible and eliminate as much guesswork as possible when it comes to the players who are actually going to be on your roster. So I know we talked about Ricky Pearsall, but to me, a guy like Jacob Cowing fits in there as well, because you just got to figure out, are these guys factors going forward, or do they need to ostensibly be replaced in the offseason or next year's draft?
I would be absolutely stunned if the 49ers didn't take a receiver or a defensive lineman in the first round of the draft. Like, yeah, to me, I feel like it's a mortal lock, whether it's a defensive tackle or an edge guy, or a receiver. Like, those are the two spots, the two position groups that I think they're going to address. And I would be stunned if they didn't.
Yes, unless something happens and they wind up with a top 10 pick, which is absolutely in play, by the way. But if they wind up with like a top 10 pick and an offensive tackle or something falls to them,
yeah,
that's the only this is a Pro Bowl caliber dude day one, then sure. But other than that, like, I think you're right. If they're probably going to be picking in the like 14, 15, 16 range. If they're in that range, yeah, I think it's defensive line or wide receiver, 100%.
Yeah,
I would be floored if they went any other direction.
Agreed. Agreed.